Marcus Aurelius. How to silence the chaos inside your head. You know what nobody tells you about the noise in your head? It was never supposed to be this loud. Somewhere between childhood and right now, your mind turned into a battlefield where 1,000 voices are screaming at once and none of them are actually yours. They are echoes of people who judged you years ago, expectations that were placed on you before you could even speak, fears that were handed down like inheritances you never asked for, standards that were never meant for your life, but somehow became the measuring stick for your worth. And here is the thing that makes it unbearable. Most people walk around thinking this is just how it is. That mental chaos is the price of being human. That peace is something reserved for monks on mountaintops, or maybe something that arrives after retirement if you are lucky. But watch a child for 5 minutes. They are completely present, utterly absorbed in whatever is right in front of them. No replay of yesterday, no rehearsal of tomorrow, just here, just now. What happened between that moment and this one? Life got loud, the world got faster, and nobody taught us how to turn down the volume. So now there is this constant stream running through the mind. Worries about things that might never happen. Regrets about things that cannot be changed. Comparisons to people living completely different lives. Judgments that are not even based on reality. It is like trying to watch a movie while someone flips through every channel at the same time. And here is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Most of what happens in the mind is not actually thinking. It is just recycling. The same thoughts on repeat, the same loops, the same patterns, different day, same mental playlist. Real thinking is intentional. It is focused. It creates something. But mental chaos that just consumes. It drains energy without producing anything useful. It is like junk food for the mind. Fills the space but never nourishes. Marcus Aurelius wrote something powerful in his private journals. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Not circumstances, not what happens to us, but thoughts. That means if the thoughts are chaotic, life feels chaotic. If the thoughts are clear, life becomes clearer. This is not about positive thinking or pretending problems do not exist. This is about recognizing that most suffering happens in the mind, not in the world. The event happens once, but the mind will replay it 100 times, adding commentary, making it worse, turning a moment into a lifetime of pain. So here is what is happening right now. This is not another video telling people to just think positive or let it go without showing how. This is about the actual mechanics of silencing mental chaos, the techniques that actually work when the noise is deafening at 2 in the morning. If this resonates, hit the like button. Share this with someone whose mind has been too loud lately. Subscribe to this channel because this community is learning to think clearly in a world designed to keep minds scattered. If you are ready to reclaim your mental silence and take back control, write this powerful statement in the comments right now. Silent mind, powerful life. First, the problem is not the thoughts themselves, it is the attention given to them. This is where most people get it completely wrong. They think the goal is to stop having chaotic thoughts, to somehow achieve this perfect mental state where only good thoughts arise. That is not just unrealistic, it is impossible. The human brain produces thousands of thoughts per day. Some estimates say 60,000. Most of them are complete nonsense, random, meaningless, like mental static. Did that person think I was weird? Why did they look at me that way? What if everything falls apart? Maybe everyone secretly hates me. These thoughts just pop up, like ads in the mind. And here is the key. Having the thought means nothing. It is just a thought. It only has the power that someone gives it. The problem starts when there is engagement. When the thought appears, and instead of letting it pass, there is that moment of, oh no, this must be true, this must mean something about me. That is when the thought becomes chaos. That is when it starts poisoning everything. Think about it like this. Imagine standing beside a river. Thoughts are like leaves floating on the water. Some leaves are beautiful, some are ugly, some are interesting, most are boring, but they are all just passing by. They keep moving unless someone reaches out and grabs one. That is engagement. Reaching into the river, grabbing a leaf and holding it. This leaf is mine now. This leaf defines me. This leaf is the truth about who I am. Meanwhile, 1,000 other leaves keep floating past, but now they are invisible because all the attention is on this one leaf, this one thought, this one story about not being enough or being too much or being broken or being behind. Epictetus taught something radical. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And this includes thoughts. A thought happens, it arises, but the reaction to it, that is where freedom lives or dies. So when a thought shows up, especially the harsh ones, the cruel ones, the catastrophic ones, there is a split-second decision point where it is possible to grab it or let it pass. Most people do not even know this choice exists. They think the thought arises, therefore the thought is true, therefore the thought must be analyzed and believed and acted upon, an automatic, unconscious, exhausting process. But once there is awareness of this choice point, everything changes. Oh, a thought is telling me I am a failure. Interesting. Is it actually true, or is it just fear talking? Is there any evidence for this, or is it just an old pattern running on autopilot? That tiny space, that pause between the thought and the engagement, that is where freedom lives. Here is a practical way to practice this. When a chaotic thought arises, instead of engaging with it immediately, just label it. This is a worry thought. This is a comparison thought. This is a fear thought. This is the shame spiral starting. Labeling creates distance. It reminds the mind that this is just one thought among thousands. It is not the absolute truth. It is not the whole picture. It is just a thought. And thoughts, when they are not fed with engagement, attention, and energy, they dissipate. They lose power. They become what they really are, temporary mental events that come and go like weather. Type this statement below and let it be your anchor when thoughts try to pull you under. Thoughts pass. I remain. Number 2, the mind follows where attention leads. There is a spotlight in the mind. Right now, it is pointing at something. Maybe it is these words. Maybe it is a worry lurking in the background. Maybe it is a memory that keeps replaying. Whatever that spotlight touches becomes the whole world for that moment. Here is what most people do not realize. That spotlight can be moved intentionally, on purpose. It does not move randomly. The mind behaves that way naturally, although it seems like it when there is no training. The mind is like a puppy left unsupervised. It will chase every squirrel, bark at every shadow, dig holes where it should not. But with training, with consistency, it learns where to focus and where not to waste energy. Mental chaos thrives in the dark corners where attention lingers too long. That embarrassing moment from 3 years ago only has power because the spotlight keeps returning to it. That worry about what might go wrong next month grows bigger every time it gets more attention. But here is the flip side. Whatever gets consistent attention grows stronger. Focus on problems and problems multiply. Focus on gratitude and suddenly there are more reasons to be grateful. Not because reality changed, but because perception shifted. The Stoics called this guarding the mind. Seneca wrote, "The mind that is anxious about future events is miserable." He was not saying do not plan for the future. He was saying do not give attention to imaginary disasters that have not happened and probably never will. So how does this work in practice? How does someone redirect focus away from chaotic thoughts that seem so magnetic, so demanding, so impossible to ignore? Start small. Right now, wherever someone is reading or listening to this, notice 5 things in the immediate surroundings. Actually see them. The color of a wall, the texture of fabric, how light hits a surface, a sound in the background, the feeling of breath moving in and out. That is attention being redirected. That is the spotlight being moved from whatever mental loop was running to what is actually happening in this moment. And in this moment right now, things are usually okay. Not perfect, but okay. Toxic thoughts live in the past and the future. Why did that happen? What if everything goes wrong? They cannot survive in the present moment because the present moment is just what it is. No story, no drama, just reality. simple and straightforward. This does not mean ignoring real problems. It means not giving attention to mental fiction. If there is a real problem that needs solving, attention should go there. But focused, clear attention that leads to action, not scattered, anxious attention that just spins in circles. Here is a practice that actually works. When the mind starts wandering, ask this question: what needs my attention right now? Not in an hour, not tomorrow, right now. Usually the answer is simple: a task, a conversation, a meal, a breath, something real and present. And when attention goes fully there, chaotic thoughts lose their grip. They might still be there, but they are background noise instead of the main event. Number 3, the body breaks mental stagnation. The body and mind are not separate. They are connected in ways deeper than most people realize. When the body is stuck, stagnant, frozen, the mind follows. When the body moves, the mind shifts. Ever notice how chaotic thoughts get louder when sitting still? Late at night, lying in bed, and suddenly the mind becomes a courtroom where every mistake is being judged. Or sitting at a desk staring at a screen and the inner critic starts its daily performance review. But take a walk. Suddenly thoughts start flowing differently. They are less sticky, less intense. The rhythm of movement creates a rhythm in thinking. Problems that seemed impossible start having solutions. Emotions that seemed permanent start shifting. This is not coincidence. This is biology. Movement changes brain chemistry. It releases tension stored in muscles. It interrupts the feedback loops that keep chaotic thoughts spinning. When the body is in motion, the mind cannot stay stuck in the same groove. The ancient Stoics knew this. They did not just sit around thinking all day. They walked, they trained, they engaged physically with the world. Aristotle taught while walking. The Stoics practiced wrestling and physical discipline. They understood that philosophy without physical practice was just theory. Here is what this looks like in real life. When anxiety starts building, when thoughts start racing, when the mind feels like it is going to explode, move. Not aggressively, not frantically. Just move. Stand up, stretch, walk to another room, step outside for 2 minutes, do 10 jumping jacks, shake out arms and legs, dance to one song. Anything that gets the body out of its frozen state. Because here is what happens. The body sends signals to the brain. We are moving. We must not be in imminent danger. We can calm down now. It is like hitting a reset button on the nervous system. And it is not just about exercise. It is about breaking physical patterns that reinforce mental patterns. Someone always spirals while lying in bed. Do not try to think your way out while lying in bed. Get up. Change location, change position. The mental pattern is tied to the physical pattern, and changing one helps change the other. There is also something powerful about using the body to express what the mind is suppressing. Feeling anger? Push against a wall with full force for 30 seconds. Feeling sadness? Let the shoulders drop. Let the chest cave. Feel it physically, then stand tall. Open the chest. Lift the head. The body position changes the emotional state. This is not about ignoring feelings. This is about not letting them imprison the whole system in stagnation. Emotions want to flow. That is why they are called emotions, energy in motion. But when the body is still, emotions get stuck. They tighten, they become toxic. Think about animals. When a deer escapes a predator, it does not just stop and go back to grazing. It shakes. It literally trembles and shakes to release the stress hormones and trauma from its system. Then it goes back to grazing. Humans. Someone goes through a stressful experience and then sits at a desk for 8 hours, suppressing everything, wondering why the anxiety will not go away. The body never got to complete the stress cycle. The energy never got to flow. So here is the practice. When chaotic thoughts take over, ask the body what it needs. Does it need to stretch, walk, run, shake, breathe deeply, cry, laugh, and then let it? Give the body permission to move, to release, to express. Not performing for anyone, not trying to look a certain way. Just letting the physical system do what it naturally does. discharge trapped energy, and return to balance. The mind will follow. It always follows. Number 4, what enters the mind shapes what comes out of it. The mind is permeable. It absorbs. Everything that enters leaves residue, changes the chemistry, alters the landscape. And most people let absolutely anything walk through the front door. Wake up, grab the phone, scroll through highlight reels of lives that are not real. Read about disasters happening across the world. Absorb opinions from strangers who are angry about everything. Listen to songs about heartbreak and betrayal. Watch shows filled with violence and chaos. Then wonder why the mind feels anxious, scattered, overwhelmed. It is input and output. Feed the mind poison, get toxic thoughts. Feed it chaos, get chaotic thinking. Feed it comparisons, get feelings of inadequacy. The mind does not have an automatic immune system that filters out toxins. It absorbs whatever it is exposed to and tries to make sense of it. And when there is constant exposure to negativity, even if it is subtle, even if it seems harmless, that negativity becomes the default setting. Imagine walking into a room that smells like smoke. At first it is obvious and unpleasant, but stay there long enough and you stop noticing. The nose adapts. The same thing happens with the mind. Constant exposure to toxic content becomes normal. Background noise barely noticeable but still there, still influencing mood, still shaping thoughts. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts." He understood that what enters shapes what becomes. The mind is not separate from what it consumes. It becomes what it consumes. So what does protecting mental input actually look like? It means becoming selective, intentional, almost ruthless about what gets in. Maybe that means not checking the phone first thing in the morning. Starting the day with silence, music, or movement instead of immediately downloading everyone else's chaos into a fresh mind. Maybe it means unfollowing accounts that trigger envy or insecurity, even if they are popular, even if everyone else follows them. The mind does not need to see perfectly curated lives that make real life feel small. Maybe it means limiting news consumption. Staying informed is one thing. Refreshing feeds about every terrible thing happening everywhere is another. The mind was never designed to carry the weight of global suffering 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It collapses under that pressure. Maybe it means being selective about conversations. Some people drain life. They complain endlessly, create drama, pull others down into their negativity. And while compassion matters, there is a difference between supporting someone and becoming a dumping ground for their emotional pollution. Maybe it means choosing what plays in the background, the music, the podcasts, the shows. If it is filling mental space with darkness, anger, or fear, even unconsciously, it is shaping thoughts in that direction. This is not about living in a bubble or pretending negativity does not exist. This is about recognizing that attention and mental space are limited resources. They are precious, and giving them away freely to whatever screams the loudest turns the mind into a battlefield instead of a sanctuary. The Stoics practiced this carefully. Seneca advised, "Avoid what corrupts character, not just actions, but influences." He understood that being around certain people, consuming certain content, exposing the mind to certain energy, inevitably shapes thinking and behavior. Here is a practical step. For 1 week, track what gets consumed. Every scroll session, every show, every conversation, every song. And then at the end of the week, notice patterns. How does the mind feel after each input? Lighter or heavier? Clearer or more confused, energized or drained? Make cuts, silent, clean, ruthless cuts. If something consistently makes you feel worse than when you found it, remove it. Unfollow, unsubscribe, delete, walk away. No guilt, no excuses. Protecting mental health is not rude. It is survival. And start adding better inputs. Things that inspire, that teach, that calm, that strengthen. Books that expand you, music that lifts you, people who bring out your best, content that leaves the mind feeling more capable, not more fragile. The mind will resist at first. It is used to junk food. It is addicted to drama. But feed it quality consistently, and the craving for toxic input fades. New patterns form. New defaults take shape. If you are committed to becoming the guardian of your mind, prove it by leaving this statement below. I protect what I consume. Number 5. Clarity comes from closing open loops. The mind keeps lists, invisible lists of unfinished business. Things unsaid, decisions unmade, conflicts unresolved, projects half done, promises unkept, especially promises made to oneself. And every item on those lists takes up mental RAM. Like a computer with too many programs running simultaneously in the background, the mind slows down, gets foggy, feels overwhelmed even when nothing urgent is happening, because there are 50 things silently demanding attention backstage. Chaotic thoughts love loose ends. They feed on them. That conversation that ended badly 3 months ago, still unresolved. So the mind keeps replaying it, trying different outcomes, creating imaginary versions of what should have been said. That decision that keeps getting postponed, the mind keeps returning to it, weighing options, anxious about choosing wrong. These open loops create mental clutter that makes focus impossible. It is like trying to watch a movie while someone keeps pausing to remind you of things that need doing. Cannot be present, cannot be clear, cannot think straight, because the mind is busy juggling too many incomplete tasks. Epictetus taught about distinguishing between what is under our control and what is not, but also about acting on what is controllable, not just recognizing it, but completing the cycle. So what does closing loops actually look like? It starts with making the invisible visible. Write down everything creating mental noise, every unfinished task, every unmade decision, every unresolved situation. Get it out of the head and onto paper where it can be seen clearly. Then comes the hard part. Take action or make a decision, even if it is uncomfortable, even if it is not perfect. Because an imperfect decision that closes a loop creates more mental space than perfect indecision that leaves it open. That difficult conversation that has been avoided. Schedule it, have it, complete it. Even if it does not go perfectly, at least it is not sitting in mental limbo generating anxiety every time that person's name comes up. That project that has been half done for months. Either commit to a deadline and finish it, or consciously choose to abandon it and stop feeling guilty. Both options close the loop. Leaving it in perpetual someday status drains energy without creating anything. That apology that needs making, make it. That boundary that needs setting, set it. That thing that needs saying, say it. Each one closes a loop and releases mental space. Sometimes closing a loop means accepting that something cannot be resolved. A relationship that ended badly and the other person will not communicate. The loop can still be closed internally. I did what I could. This is beyond my control. I am letting it go now. That is a period. Not perfect, but complete enough to stop the mental drain. The mind craves completion. It is wired to want resolution. That is why unfinished loops are so torturous. They go against the mind's natural desire for order and closure. But when loops get closed, even in small ways, there is immediate relief, lightness, clarity. Here is a practice. Every night before sleep, close at least one small loop. Reply to that message. Put away that item that has been sitting out for days. Schedule that appointment. Complete that tiny task. Just one. Build the habit of completion instead of accumulation. And for the bigger loops, the ones that seem impossible to close, break them down. What is one small action that moves toward closure? Not everything, just the next step. Then take that step. Then take the next. Momentum builds. Progress happens. Loops close. The mental freedom that comes from this is profound. Suddenly there is space to think, to focus, to be present. Because the background noise of 50 unfinished things demanding attention has quieted. The mind can finally rest. If you are tired of leaving things unfinished and ready to close those mental loops, declare it by commenting, I finish what I start. Number 6. The stories being told create the reality being lived. Every person walks around with a narrator in the head, a voice telling stories about what everything means, what that look meant, what that situation says about the future, what that mistake reveals about character, what other people think, what is possible and what is not. And here is the thing. The narrator is making up most of the story. Not exactly lying, but interpreting, filling gaps, creating meaning where maybe there is none. Turning neutral events into personal dramas, taking a single data point and building an entire narrative around it. Someone does not respond to a message. The narrator says they are upset. They do not care anymore. This relationship is falling apart. Reality. Maybe their phone died. Maybe they are busy. Maybe they forgot. But the story has already been written, believed, and reacted to. A project does not go perfectly. The narrator says, "This is proof of inadequacy. Everyone is going to witness this failure. This confirms what was always suspected. Not good enough." Reality. It is just a project. One outcome, one moment among thousands. But the story expands it, turns it into an identity. These stories, these narratives the mind creates, they shape everything. How situations are interpreted, what emotions are felt, what actions are taken or avoided, what becomes possible or impossible. The story being told becomes the life being lived. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." He knew that the mind does not experience reality directly. It experiences its interpretation of reality, and that interpretation is just a story. So what happens when the stories being told are toxic? When the narrator is harsh, catastrophic, always assuming the worst? When every situation is interpreted through lenses of fear, shame, or inadequacy, life becomes toxic. Not because reality is toxic, but because the story about reality is toxic, and the mind cannot tell the difference. It reacts to the story as if it is absolute truth. But here is the powerful part. If the stories are being made up anyway, why not make up better ones? Not delusional stories that ignore reality, but fairer, more accurate versions. Stories that leave room for possibility instead of slamming every door shut. Someone does not respond to a message. New story. They will reply when they can. This does not mean anything about how they feel. Neutral, fair, does not create unnecessary suffering. A project does not go perfectly. New story. This is feedback. This shows what needs adjusting. This is how learning happens. Growth-oriented, constructive, does not reduce one outcome to an identity. This is not about forced positivity. This is about catching the stories being told and asking, is this the only way to interpret this? Does this story serve growth or feed toxicity? Is it based on facts or assumptions? Most toxic thoughts are rooted in stories full of assumptions. Mind reading, they definitely think worse of me now. Fortune telling, this will never work out. Labeling, I am just broken. These are not facts. They are narratives and they can be questioned. The Stoic practice was separating impression from judgment. Something happens. That is the impression. Then comes the judgment, the story about what it means. And that is where freedom lives. In the space between what happened and the story being told about what happened. Here is how to practice this. When a toxic thought arises, write down the story it is telling. Then write down just the facts. What actually happened objectively, with no interpretation. The difference is often enormous. Story, I am a complete failure and everyone sees it. Facts, one project did not meet expectations. Story, nobody cares about me. Facts, 3 people did not respond to my messages today. Story, my life is falling apart. Facts, 3 difficult things happened this week. See the gap. The story is expansive, dramatic, absolute. The facts are specific, limited, manageable. And when attention shifts from story to facts, emotional intensity decreases. Not because feelings are being denied, but because the narrative fueling them has been questioned. Then comes the choice. What story would be fairer, more accurate, more useful? Not a fantasy story, a better interpretation of the same facts. One project did not meet expectations, which means there is room for learning and adjusting for next time. 3 people did not respond today, which is normal. People get busy. This does not reflect how they feel about me. 3 difficult things happened this week, which was challenging, and also I am still here, still handling it, still moving forward. These are not lies. They are just different, fairer stories. And when the story changes, the mental and emotional experience changes. The narrator in the mind never shuts up completely, but it can be trained. It can learn to tell stories that open doors instead of slamming them, stories that create possibility instead of prison, stories worth living. Number 7, mental space expands when physical space clears. The environment matters more than most people admit, not in a mystical way, but in a completely practical way. The space where someone lives, works, spends time, it affects the mind constantly. Walk into a cluttered, disorganized, chaotic room. Notice what happens internally. The mind reflects it, feels scattered, overwhelmed, unfocused. There is a weight to physical clutter that translates directly into mental clutter. Now, walk into a clean, clear, organized space. The mind settles. Breathing deepens. Focus sharpens. There is a sense of calm that comes from external order that the internal world responds to immediately. This is not about perfectionism or having a magazine-worthy space. This is about recognizing that the mind is constantly processing the environment consciously and unconsciously. And when the environment is chaotic, the mind spends energy just trying to handle sensory overload. The Stoics lived simply, not because they could not afford more, but because they understood excess creates distraction. Seneca wrote about how possessions end up possessing their owners. How accumulating more does not bring peace, but maintenance, worry, attachment. When physical space is cluttered, so is the mind. Every item that does not have a place, every pile that keeps growing, every surface covered with things, all of it is creating tiny mental pools that need resolution. This should be organized. That has been sitting there for weeks. These pools accumulate. They create constant low-level stress that might not be obvious but is always there, draining energy, fragmenting attention. So what does clearing physical space actually do for mental space? It eliminates decision fatigue. In a cluttered environment, the mind is constantly making micro-decisions. Should I move this? Where does that go? Why is this here? Even when these decisions are not made consciously, the brain is processing the disorder. Clear the space and those decisions disappear. The mind has fewer inputs to process, fewer problems to solve, fewer things demanding attention. It is like closing 20 browser tabs at once. Suddenly everything runs smoother. It also removes visual reminders of incomplete tasks. That pile of papers, it is a reminder of unfinished business. Those clothes on the floor, a reminder of things not in order. Those dishes in the sink, a reminder that something needs attention. Each one is an open loop, creating mental weight. Here is what clearing space looks like in practice. Start small, not the whole house. One drawer, one corner, one surface. Clear it completely. Organize it. Make it clean. Then notice how the space affects the mind. There is satisfaction in it, a sense of accomplishment, visual proof that order is possible. And that small win creates momentum for the next space and the next. For high-use areas like workspace and bedroom, keep them minimal, only what is necessary and what truly adds value. Everything else is just visual noise competing for mental attention. And here is something interesting. The act of clearing physical space often releases mental space simultaneously. There is something meditative about organizing, cleaning, putting things in order. The hands are busy, which calms the racing mind. Focus is on a simple, tangible task, which breaks the cycle of abstract worry. That is why some people clean when stressed. Not just to have a clean space, but because the process itself is calming. It gives the mind something concrete to focus on, while emotions process in the background. Environment also includes digital space, the phone, the computer, The inbox with 10,000 unread emails, the desktop covered in files, the apps sending constant notifications. All of it creates mental clutter, just like physical clutter. Clear the digital space too. Uninstall apps that are not being used. Delete old files. Organize what remains. Turn off notifications that are not essential. Set boundaries around when and how devices are used. The mind craves simplicity. It functions best in environments that support focus instead of fragmenting it. And while it is impossible to control every environment, the spaces that can be controlled, the home, the workspace, the digital devices, those matter enormously. Clear the space, clear the mind. It is that direct, that immediate, that powerful. If you are ready to create an environment that supports your mental clarity, instead of sabotaging it, commit by typing, clear space, clear mind. Number 8. Resistance feeds what it fights. Here is a paradox that confuses almost everyone. The more someone fights a chaotic thought, the stronger it becomes. Push it away and it pushes back harder. Try to suppress it and it increases volume. Resist with all your strength and it takes over completely. It is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes constant effort, constant attention, constant energy. And the moment there is any relaxation, it explodes back to the surface with even more force. That is what happens with chaotic thoughts when they meet resistance. I should not be thinking this. This thought is bad. I need to make this stop right now. All that resistance is just giving the thought more energy, more importance, more power. The mind does not work through force. It works through awareness. Fighting a thought keeps attention locked on it, and attention is food. Whatever gets attention grows. So fighting chaotic thoughts actually feeds them while trying to starve them. No wonder it does not work. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists." The Stoics understood this in their own way. They did not teach suppression. They taught acceptance of what is combined with wise action toward what could be. Accept that the thought exists. Do not give it power through resistance. Then choose a different direction. Think about physical pain. When someone tenses against pain, it gets worse. Muscles tighten. Blood flow restricts. The nervous system amplifies the signal. But when someone breathes into the pain, relaxes around it, accepts it without fighting it, often the pain decreases. Not because it disappears, but because resistance is not multiplying it. The same happens with mental pain. The same happens with chaotic thoughts. They arise. That is how the mind works. But the suffering does not come from the thought itself. It comes from the war being waged against the thought. I cannot believe I am thinking this again. What is wrong with me? Why cannot I just stop? This is pathetic. I am pathetic for having this thought. Now there is not just one chaotic thought. There is a whole spiral of chaotic thoughts about having the chaotic thought. The resistance created more of what it was trying to eliminate. So what is the alternative? Acceptance. Not agreement, not approval. Just acceptance that the thought is here. Okay, there is that anxious thought again. It showed up. Makes sense given the circumstances. It is just a thought though. It does not control me. It does not define me. It is just passing through. No fight, no drama, just acknowledgement. And when there is no resistance to fight against, the thought has nowhere to go. It arises, gets noticed, but then fades because it is not getting the reaction it needs to stick around. This is what the Stoics called objective representation. See things as they actually are, not worse than they are. A chaotic thought appears. It is just neurons firing in a pattern. It is just mental activity. It is not truth. It is not a command. It is not an identity. It is just a thought. Here is a practice that works. When a chaotic thought arises, instead of fighting it, get curious about it. Interesting. Where did this come from? What triggered this? What is this thought trying to protect me from? Curiosity dissolves resistance. You cannot be at war with something while being genuinely curious about it. And often, behind chaotic thoughts are legitimate concerns or unmet needs, trying to get attention the only way they know how. The anxious thought about the future, maybe it is pointing to something that actually needs planning or preparation. Address that practical need and the thought often quiets. The self-critical thought, maybe it is an internalized voice from childhood that learned criticism equals safety. Understanding that context removes its power. The thought does not need to be destroyed. It just needs to be seen clearly. And when it is seen clearly, without resistance, without making it bigger than it is, it naturally loses intensity. The beach ball can float on the surface. It does not need to be held underwater. It does not need to be thrown away. It can just be there. Neutral, not a threat. Just an object in the water. Number 9. Consistency shapes destiny more than intensity. Everyone wants the dramatic moment, the breakthrough, that one powerful experience that changes everything forever. And sometimes those moments happen, but they are not what create lasting change. They are not what build a mind that stays clear and focused even through difficulty. What builds that? Small actions repeated daily over weeks, months, years. Consistency. Someone can have a profound insight about mental chaos while watching a video like this. Feel completely transformed, totally clear, ready to conquer the world. And 2 days later, everything is back to the same patterns, the same loops, the same mental chaos. Because one moment of clarity does not reprogram years of conditioning. One powerful experience does not override thousands of hours of practiced mental habits. Transformation is not an event, it is a process, and processes require repetition. The Stoics knew this deeply. They did not study philosophy once and consider themselves done. They practiced daily. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journals every day, reflecting on his thoughts, reminding himself of principles, redirecting his mind toward wisdom. Epictetus taught his students through constant repetition, knowing that understanding something once does not mean it is integrated. Think about learning any skill, playing an instrument, speaking a language, building strength. Nobody practices intensely once and becomes a master. It is the daily practice, even when it is boring, even when progress is not obvious, even when motivation is low, that creates real capability. Mental clarity works the same way. It is built through consistent practice, not intense effort, followed by neglect. What does consistency look like in this context? Pick 1 or 2 practices from everything shared in this video and do them daily. Not perfectly, not intensely, consistently. Maybe it is just taking 2 minutes every morning to notice and release chaotic thoughts before they gain momentum. Every morning, even when running late, even when it seems unnecessary. Especially then. Maybe it is the evening practice of closing 1 open loop before sleep. Every night. Just 1. Building the habit of completion instead of accumulation. Maybe it is the moment a chaotic thought arises, pausing to label it instead of believing it. Every time. This is a worry thought. This is a comparison thought. Building the habit of awareness instead of automation. These practices seem tiny, almost insignificant, but that is exactly why they work. They are sustainable. They do not require massive willpower or perfect conditions. They just require showing up, even minimally, consistently. There is a concept in behavior change, the aggregation of marginal gains. Small 1% improvements, compounded over time, create extraordinary results. Not because any single day is transformative, but because the direction is consistent and the accumulation is powerful. 1 day of practicing mental clarity, barely noticeable. 30 days, there is a shift. 90 days, the mind operates differently. 1 year, the mental landscape is completely different. Not because of one intense breakthrough, but because of small choices repeated until they became patterns that became a new way of being. The mind learns through repetition. Neural pathways strengthen with use. What gets practiced becomes automatic. So practicing toxic thought patterns daily creates a mind dominated by toxicity. Practicing clarity daily creates a mind that naturally defaults to clarity. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. Show up, practice, repeat. Trust the process even when results are not immediate, especially when they are not immediate because intensity fades, consistency builds, and the goal is not to have one perfect day where the mind is completely clear. The goal is to have 1,000 imperfect days where the mind gets slightly better at managing itself, slowly building toward a life where focus and peace are the baseline instead of the exception. So here is where it all comes together. There are 1,000 techniques for clearing the mind, hundreds of philosophies, endless advice, but none of it matters without one thing: the decision that this matters enough to actually do something about it. Not just wanting a clear mind, not just wishing chaotic thoughts would disappear, but deciding, really deciding, that mental clarity is worth protecting, worth practicing, worth prioritizing, even when it is inconvenient. Because here is the truth: the mind will stay chaotic as long as chaos is tolerated. Chaotic thoughts will keep running the show as long as they are given the opportunity. Focus will remain fragmented as long as attention is carelessly given to everything that demands it. But the moment there is a genuine decision, this is how I choose to operate now, this is the standard I hold for my mental space, this is non-negotiable, everything changes. Not magically, not instantly, but inevitably. The techniques shared here are not theoretical. They are practical. They work, but only when applied, only when practiced, only when taken beyond the first spark of inspiration. Right now, there is a choice. Close this video, feel momentarily inspired, and then return to the same mental patterns that brought someone here in the first place. Or choose one thing, just one, and implement it today, not tomorrow, not when life feels easier, today. Maybe it is noticing one chaotic thought and choosing not to believe it. Maybe it is clearing one physical space that has been weighing on the mind. Maybe it is finally closing one open loop that has been draining energy for weeks. Just one action that proves to the mind, things are different now. We do not tolerate chaos here anymore. The ancient Stoics did not just think about wisdom, they lived it. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations to publish a book. They were daily reminders to himself about who he wanted to be and how he wanted to think. He knew that without constant practice, the mind returns to old patterns. The same applies now. This is not about consuming more information. This is about applying what has already been shared. This is about taking ownership of mental space and refusing to let it become a dumping ground for every fear, every worry, every toxic pattern that shows up. The mind settles when the choice is made, and it clears when that choice is reinforced through daily action. Not perfect action, just consistent, intentional, honest effort to create something better than what existed before. This community, everyone watching, everyone practicing, everyone choosing clarity over chaos, that is where support lives. So if this resonated, hit the like button. Leave a comment sharing which truth hit hardest, or which practice you will implement first. Share this video with someone stuck in their own mental chaos lately. And subscribe, because the conversation continues, the support continues, and growth is always stronger together than alone. The mind is the foundation of everything. When it is clear, life expands, opportunities appear, relationships deepen, work improves, peace becomes possible. Not because the world changed, but because inner clarity created space for all the good that was always there, but hidden behind fog. That clarity is available now, not someday, not when life is perfect, now through choice, through practice, through commitment. Chaotic thoughts will still show up sometimes. That is human, but they do not have to be in charge anymore. They do not have to define the experience anymore. They cannot steal focus, peace, or potential anymore. A silent mind is possible. A powerful life is possible. And it all starts with one choice, followed by one action repeated until it becomes the new normal. One last thing before you go. This is your declaration of independence from mental chaos. Solidify it by commenting one final time. My mind is under my command.